Erik was a West Point graduate, class of '94. He graduated in the top quarter of his class. He was a very effective, very popular platoon leader. He's a very successful, driven guy, and he had a fantastic sense of humor. A lot of laughing happened when Erik was around. He and his girlfriend went into Costco there in Las Vegas, and Erik was legally carrying a firearm, and he did that because his job often required quickly going into any area of Las Vegas, day or night. Some good areas and not so good areas. Been in there roughly an hour when somebody spotted the gun, when Erik squatted to see if 3 water bottles would fit into a soft-sided cooler. So Erik said that he was a legally licensed weapon carrier.
We just told him that our policy is we cannot allow firearms in the building.
So this undercover security guy, Shay Lyerly, called the cops.
The caller that called up Metro for the police department dramatized the whole thing, make it look like this guy was crazy.
The cops that arrived at one time thought they had a crazy guy barricaded inside, waving 3 guns around. Las Vegas Metro rolled in force, 15 cruisers, helicopter, command staff.
The decision is made to evacuate the business.
Who makes that decision?
That decision is made by both the business and by the watch commander at that particular time.
So Erik and his girlfriend calmly walked out with the crowd.
Was Erik posing any threat to you or anyone in Costco walking out of the store?
No, sir.
And then Shay Lyerly, who was on a cell phone talking to dispatch, pointed to Erik and said, "That's him."
I told the suspect, show your hands, get down on the ground, get down on the ground.
Before he could do anything, Moser fired. He mistook a Blackberry phone for a gun. As he fell, 2 other cops put 5 more rounds in Erik's back after he was on the ground and dying. Moser did exactly the wrong thing. Police policies and procedures would never okay challenging a, quote, suspect, Erik was not suspected of anything, in the midst of a crowd of maybe 100 people that were milling around there, and then start firing in the middle of that crowd. Many witnesses say after the shooting, only one thing on the ground, the Blackberry. Erik never touched his gun, but when Erik's body went into the ambulance, the only gun that he carried was still in its holster. Witnesses saw it, we know that. But in order for the narrative to work, which is Erik pulled the gun and we had to shoot him, I believe that they took that gun out of the ambulance and put it back on the ground before the homicide detectives got there. So when they got there, take pictures and everything, the gun was on the ground right next to the Blackberry. But one problem. The AMR ambulance people in their report said found gun on body. So all of a sudden, Las Vegas Metro had a problem. How can you have a gun on the ground at Costco as supposed proof that Erik had drawn it and justified Moser killing him, and yet the EMTs found a gun on the body in the ambulance? But Erik only had 1 gun. He never carried 2. We got to have a second gun. They had Erik's wallet. They saw in the wallet that he had several guns, so that's why they enlisted the aid of the public administrator. Why? Because they had no grounds to go get a warrant from a judge. So they had to break into his condo. They called my son Kevin 3 times.
Yeah, Kevin, this is Steve Groden from the public administrator's office out in Clark County, Nevada. I spoke with you a little earlier when the coroner's investigator spoke with you. I need to get in touch with you right away regarding your brother's property.
They used the ploy, quasi-legal, of the public administrator that says when somebody has been killed and there's nobody to protect the place, which was wrong right away because the girlfriend was living with him. She was there. Kevin, my other son, had already told him that you are not allowed to go in that condo, but they did anyway. They broke in.
I've contacted a locksmith because we have no key to get in to your brother's apartment at this time. They can go in and secure what weapons and valuables that are stolen in the apartment.
The little Ruger LCP that became the so-called second gun, it's very small, about palm size. They claimed that he had it in his front right pocket. He didn't. He couldn't, because that big wallet was in there. There's no way he could have it in there. But that's the only way the narrative played, and that was their cover for having one on the ground, as if Erik had pulled it.
So their story is, this West Point graduate with a master's degree from Duke, who's never even been arrested, just suddenly decided to pull a gun on armed police officers? Who's gonna believe that? Well, maybe we can say some things that will help them believe that.
They tried to turn him into some kind of a druggie. He was taking prescription pain medication. He had 40% of his L5 vertebra broken off, jumping out of airplanes when he got his jump wings in the Army. And he was down to 3 pills a day, which Erik was very proud of. He said, I want to be off this stuff by the end of the year. But the cops and the DA turned that into something horrible. And they said he was acting crazy in Costco because he was on this heavy-duty pain medication. Not true. I know airline pilots, I know lawyers, I know firemen, I know cops who are taking exactly the same pain medication, and they function just fine, as did Erik.
There was an exterior video of the parking lot and the front entrance, and that part that showed Erik Scott being gunned down, all of a sudden, that's missing.
Why? Because the video would have shown that Erik was literally murdered for absolutely no reason. Would have been lots of liability for Costco, tons of liability for Las Vegas Metro. That had to disappear, and it did. Doug Gillespie was in the middle of a very tight sheriff's re-election race at the time. There had been several other shootings just before that, the Trevon Cole shooting, roughly 3 weeks before Erik was killed. And that was very controversial too. Another cop did a very, very stupid thing and killed a young man for no reason. Well, Gillespie was under fire from that and other shootings. He didn't need this one too. So the Erik Scott case was going to be the one that put him underwater. His numbers, his poll numbers were going in the tank at the time. They could not afford to have cops murdering people in front of Costco at high noon, basically. So for the narrative to work, Erik had to pull his gun. Well, let's check the video, see exactly what happened. What video? Costco's security video. They had cameras everywhere. And all of that was digital video recorded in their security office on a couple of digital video recorders, DVRs. Well, they're nothing but a hard disk in there. Well, amazingly, that DVR eventually wound up in Los Angeles at the Secret Service facility. Their forensic experts went through it and claimed that they could recover 96% of the data that was on that hard disk. Only 4% were considered unrecoverable due to physical damage to the platters in that hard disk. Just happened to be that 4% covered the time that Erik was in Costco and being killed outside. We have 4 cops within Las Vegas Metro that have said that they or somebody they talked to in the first person saw the video of Erik being shot.
They shot him while he was standing, they shot him when he dropped to his knees, and they shot him while he was on the ground. Since then, one of those 3 cops are no longer with Metro because he was caught selling a weapon to an ex-felon. Some of these are the types of the officers we have working in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Criminals with badges.
Gillespie said after Erik was killed to a room full of his own cops, I'm not losing much sleep over the Erik Scott shooting. I don't want you guys thinking shoot, don't shoot out there. I want you to do whatever you have to and go home at night.